All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting daily vlog. This is daily vlog 2025, day 26, and today, quick update health-wise, I had a seizure yesterday, I think. Really early, like, I think it was like 2 or 3 in the morning. I am still recovering, if you couldn't guess. But I needed to do something, so I'm making a vlog. Second, significantly less impactful. You may notice I'm getting slightly fuzzier. I'm going to try the whole beard thing again because the less of my face is visible, the more people seem to enjoy it. So we will see how long this experiment goes. So today I want to talk about a person I'm actually going to name drop. Just because, I don't know if it's a joke or if they really believe it, but they call themselves the God King of the Daily Wire. That is Jeremy Boring. The reason that I am name dropping this person, despite the fact that this isn't really about them, is because they are really a fantastic kind of epiphany of one of the biggest problems we have in business right now. And again, he's very unapologetic about his beliefs and how he treats people and everything like that. So if he gets mad at me about this, I really don't give a crap. I don't personally think I can make his reputation any worse. So anyway, why? Also, some of the stuff I have to talk about, I have to reference some of the things that he's done, and using, pronouns and stuff like that, it's going to be blatantly easy to figure out who I'm talking about. So it's not a real whole lot of point in this. Now, I'm going to preface this. This is all my opinion. Nothing I say here should be construed as objective fact or anything like that. This is just my opinion. But I worked in business long enough to have met people like Mr. Boring, and they 100% are what is wrong with business in America. Now, let me explain what I'm talking about. If anyone is unaware, Jeremy Boring is the CEO of the Daily Wire, and he has had a couple situations where he's been brought to the forefront of some sort of controversy. The first one that I was made aware of, if anyone is familiar with Steven Crowder, this is not a time for you to lambast how much you either absolutely adore his content or think he's the scum of the universe. He is a conservative political pundit. He used to be, he used to have the largest conservative channel on YouTube. I don't know if he's still on YouTube anymore. I stopped watching him a little while ago, or actually years ago at this point. However, there was a situation where, if I remember correctly, he worked for some company. And he stopped working for that company. And so he was starting to look at offers for other conservative companies that might wish to court him to work for them. as I've said before, when this is happening, he was the largest conservative channel on YouTube. He got more views than most legacy media on his stuff. He was a really, really big name. Again, this is not to say that he's good or bad or otherwise. This is just, he was really, really big. Everyone assumes, since he and Ben Shapiro, who also owns the Daily Wire and helped found it, but he's not the CEO, he and Ben Shapiro had a pretty decent working relationship. They liked to tease each other. They'd showed up on each other's shows quite a few times. They made the natural assumption, since the Daily Wire is the biggest kind of right-leaning conservative news network on YouTube, they assumed that and he would naturally sign with the Daily Wire, because there's a lot of other really popular conservative voices on there, like Candace Owen, other things like that. Well, the big controversy was Jeremy Boeing sent an offer to Steven Crowder, and the offer was the lowest of lowballs. It was a predatory contract. It was, and when I say predatory, I mean it. The language and things like that in there gave a massive power imbalance to the Daily Wire. There are things like, well, if you get suspended from YouTube, there's a fine. If you get suspended from Twitter, here's a fine. And these are all things, because this is pre-Elon Musk on Twitter, these are all things that had already happened to Steven Crowder recently. He'd been banned from Twitter for a set amount of time. He'd had his YouTube channel suspended multiple times. So these are all things that were effectively guaranteed to happen. And this contract was written in such a way that if any of these things that were going to happen would happen, there would be massive fines and things like that, to the point where Steven Crowder would be in a really, really bad position. And so Crowder went public with the contract. He went public with the whole thing and said it was absolutely despicable. And Mr. Boring's response was, hey, that was a first offer. That's how it works. Maybe it's been a long time since you've been in the business world, but that's what a first offer is. The first offer is always lower. We expect you to negotiate up. And so we always put things in there that we're not expecting to go through. However, and then he went off and listed, all of these things are in all my other contracts as well, so there's no problem with me offering them. It was this really duplicative talking out of both sides of the mouth. But the thing that I wanted to talk about was that first part, the idea, well, this is how business works. And he's not wrong. It's gotten worse. It got worse in the decade that it got slowly worse in the decade that I was working in retail, and then got progressively worse after I became disabled and was no longer able to work. But the idea that is pervasive, at least in the hiring market. And I did do hiring and staffing, I guess I should say. Because I did do staffing at quite a few different companies. I think almost every company that I worked for, at one point, I would do at least some staffing for them. Because I interview people very, very well. And I'm generally pretty good at picking out people that are going to be a good fit for a company. And the thing about staffing is, and I got actual training on interview techniques. I got training on how to make initial offers and the things like that, negotiations. Like, I get all that stuff. And probably the first thing that was kind of beaten into me is, if you let them, the employee will take you to the cleaners. Their entire purpose is to take you for as much money as they possibly can while doing the least amount of work physically possible. And if you don't rein that in, they will bankrupt your company. In an interview situation like that, if your approach is to view your new potential employee as the enemy that's going to try to exploit your company, who's going to try to lie, cheat, steal, whatever they can do to wring as much money out of you as possible, the interview is going to be a very, very different situation. Now, if you look on YouTube for advice on interviewing, advice on negotiating your salary, what you will find the overwhelming majority of the time is this advice. The company is not your friend. They're there to exploit you, to wring all of the work possible out of you, to pay you the littlest amount possible and make as much profit as they possibly can off of you, while ensuring that there's nothing you can do about it. Never go into an interview thinking that they are ever going to do anything other than lie, cheat, and steal from you. I was given this advice when I started interviewing for management positions, and the basics of it is, we have this situation where a conversation that should be mutually beneficial, okay? Company needs people to work. People needs company to pay them. Both parties are going to be better off once the conversation is over if they decide to work together. But they both come into it looking at the other person like they are the enemy. And that is such a bad take. And again, Mr. Boring is the absolute epitome of this. Again, with the whole situation with Steven Crowder, there was no reason, absolutely none, to lowball Crowder. Crowder was not going to come in and take him for everything that he was worth. He was not going to lie, cheat, and steal. They already had a working relationship. They had had conversations when he wasn't a free agent. They knew each other. There was no reason to assume that as soon as they got into a negotiation that Steven Crowder was just somehow going to lie, cheat, and steal and try to get more than he was worth. There was no reason to assume that. But Mr. Boring is of the mindset that anyone that interviews for me is going to try and cheat me. So I'm going to cheat them first. Now, I can't say 100% certainly why they have that Mr. Boring has that opinion. It is, again, this is a theory. This is not meant to imply any sort of fact. This is me theorizing on my own part, using my own flawed knowledge. I have met people that, and I guess it's not a completely uncommon thing for people to assume that everybody thinks like them. But I have met some rather disagreeable people who have had very long conversations with me about the idea that all people are inherently bad because they will always do this and always that. And what those conversations eventually boiled down to is the person I was talking to, the person that we were having this debate with, had these viewpoints and could not believe that anyone else would not view the world the way that he did, or wouldn't always act exclusively in their own interest. And that's not true. Altruism is a real thing. I know a lot of people who are not so incredibly self-focused that they can't understand, oh, if I take a slight hit here, both of us are going to benefit, as opposed to if I don't wring everything out of them that I possibly can, then I've done something wrong. It's a trait. Again, I'm not saying that Mr. Boring has any of these traits. I'm saying the logic that looks like he is using reminds me of conversations I've had with narcissists and sociopaths. I'm not saying that he is, I'm not attempting to imply, but I'm saying the train of thought is very, very similar. This is how I think, therefore, the entire world has to think the same way I do. When we move forward quite a few years, recently Brett Cooper, who used to host the comment section on the Daily Wire, has left. There has been tons of internet hullabaloo about all this stuff going on. And one of the things that keeps coming up over and over and over again is how Brett Cooper is not saying anything. Mostly because it has been theorized, I don't know if this has actually been confirmed, but it has been heavily theorized that she's under a really, really heavy NDA. And when I was reading about that, and I read about what happened when Candace Owens left, and all these other people that are leaving the Daily Wire, or thinking about leaving the Daily Wire, it occurred to me, the Daily Wire has got to have some of the most litigious contracts I have ever heard of. Again, I have worked for quite a few different companies. I have been under various NDAs for various reasons. I have never read the Daily Wire NDAs, so I have no idea what's contained in them. But the way that people treat them, to me, seems like it feels like the company is run by a lawyer. And what I mean by that, one of the things that I used to have to do somewhat regularly, you deal with HR. When you're in management, you deal with HR. If you're not familiar with the term, HR stands for Human Resources. And HR is basically the person or the people you talk to when something is going wrong with the employees. If there's a complaint made from one of the employees or one of the management or something, it generally goes to HR. And HR's job, what people think HR's job is to kind of settle conflict and stuff like that. That's not actually what they do. The purpose of HR is to limit liability on the company. A lot of people that work in HR are very understanding of laws and legality and things like that. And most of my conversations with HR have always referenced laws, labor laws, and the things like that, and what making certain decisions will open us up liability. Will open liability to for us. So I've dealt with legal people, and there's a reason that like HR people don't make contracts, because if they did, they would be disgusting. They would be 700 pages long and have all of these things that ensure that the company is completely protected from any single possible thing that could ever possibly happen, which isn't actually possible, but it's surprising how many HR reps think that it is. And that's what I have to assume these contracts are, because I remember the contract that Steven Crowder shared, and I remember, I can't remember if I actually read the damn thing or if it was just him reading it, but I do remember seeing him kind of go over it. And I just remember being flabbergasted with all the legalese and all the other stuff in there that really had no place in a business contract, in an employment contract. There are significantly better places to protect yourself from liability than in your employment contract. You really shouldn't be putting everything into the employment contract, because that creates other issues down the road. If for some odd reason some aspect of the contract gets voided, even if you do put one of those nifty clauses in there that says, yeah, if one part of this contract gets voided, it doesn't mean that the rest of the contract is voided. That's an actual legal clause that's in most contracts now, generally at the very end, where it'll say something effective, if anything in here is voided for any reason, that does not void the entire contract. And it was specifically put in because things would happen like, well, this particular aspect of the contract has been declared illegal, and now my entire employment contract is gone, and I can do whatever I want. And people didn't really like that. Because if there was an NDA built into your contract, and then let's say you had like a non-compete, and recently, I believe just in the state of California, but it might be others as well, it was ruled that non-compete clauses are illegal. So without that little without that clause, as soon as that got declared illegal, well, the entire contract would have been void, and people would just go, "Oh, I'm no longer under NDA." So anyway, getting back to these contracts, like everything I've heard, everything that I've seen, like these are predatory contracts that he gets these people to sign, and there's no reason to do that. It's not benefiting the Daily Wire to make these hyper predatory contracts. They're not doing better because they're able to silence people. Like when Brett Cooper left, the fact that she can't say anything is not helping the Daily Wire in any way, shape, or form. Same thing with Candace Owens. The fact that she can't talk about a lot of the stuff there doesn't make the Daily Wire look better. It makes it look significantly worse. It makes it look like a predatory company trying to hide the things. There's no benefit unless you believe that without those contracts, the people that you're hiring are going to take you to the cleaners because they are just as predatory as you are. And that's how the business world works. And it's worked that way for years, longer than I've been in business. Because again, a lot of the training that I got on interview technique and how to make initial offers and things like that was not new when they gave it to me. But it has gotten progressively worse over the past like 10-ish years. Like significantly worse. It's been getting worse for a long time, but it just like went crazy within the past decade or so. And it's just not a good thing. The final company that I got to work for, which shall remain nameless, despite the fact that they don't exist anymore. They went bankrupt. They also might have been violating some major labor laws. And when I found out and told them, they tried to fire me. But, which is 100% illegal. And they got away with it because my mental health was so bad at the time. And it caused me to have a psychotic break. And I had to quit. Under medical recommendation. Yeah, they didn't have to fire me. They just fucked me over. Anyway, the last company I worked for, their interview process was completely different. It was a stupid interview process because they had you do things like what they did is they had this little card. I might still have the card somewhere. I don't know. They had this little card that you would follow, and it would just have a bunch of questions that you would ask. The company I worked for, to make some of this make a little more sense, it was a movie rental company, not that one. You probably have never heard of it unless you lived in the Midwest. But they were making shit tons of money all the way up through 2019, I think it was. It was lockdowns and everything that finally screwed them over. That and really, really bad management. But anyway, when I would sit down to interview a new employee, instead of doing things like this, anyone that's conducted an interview, you've had to ask a question, this specific question or a question like it. Tell me about a time when you went above and beyond for a customer. That is a canned interview question. When I was working in retail, in more corporate retail, I was required to ask that specific question. It's a dumb question. Actually, the question itself is actually pretty useful. because what it does is it helps you to understand the mind of the person that you are interviewing. In the idea that I go, if I say, hey, tell me about a time when you went above and beyond for a customer. First of all, I'm asking them an open-ended question, so I'm not going to get a yes or no. I'm going to get to see how they form words. I'm going to see how they form sentences, things like that. Second of all, I'm asking for something specific. If they're prepared for the interview, they're going to have a specific, or if they have a decent history of work, they're going to be able to pick something out specifically. If they're not prepared, if they're not listening to me, they're going to go, well, if a customer needed something, I didn't ask you if, tell me about a time you did. And I had one person that I interviewed once that I had to ask that question 4 times. Because the first response was like, well, like if a customer needed help, I'd totally do it. Yes, but I'm just asking, can you tell me about a time when you went above and beyond for a customer? Well, like, if a customer needs something, I do it. All right, maybe don't focus on work. Has there ever been a time where someone has asked you for help and you went above and beyond? Maybe as a friend, maybe as a teacher or something like that. No, like when people ask me for help all the time, I'm like, yeah, we'll call you. Don't call us. Anyway, the second part about that is because I'm just asking them, tell me about a time you went above and beyond. I get to figure out what they believe is above and beyond. Like if their example is, well, I was working in a grocery store and a customer asked me where the peas are, and I walked them over to where the peas were. And they assume that walking the customer to the peas is going above and beyond. Well, then that gives me a really good idea of what they think their job is. It's just to stand there and tell people where to go, which is really bad customer service. There's a completely different way to get to that information without having to go through this mental gymnastics of asking these loaded questions and hoping that you can get the right answer to them. It's to ask them. Just flat out go, hey, so what do you envision yourself? Like, you get this job, what do you envision yourself doing here? Well, okay. And if a customer asks for this, what do you think would be good for you to do? What do you think might be less good? Like, that's a completely honest conversation. So this card, it would have questions, but very few of them actually dealt with anything involving working in the store. You do things like, what's your favorite movie? Because there's a video rental store. Okay. What's your family like? Here's a really good tip if you are interviewing someone. Don't fucking ask about their family, you moron. The reason why is family status is a protected class in as declared by the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission, EEOC. So if you ask them things like, tell me about your family, and you find out that their wife is pregnant, let's say. Well, now if you decide not to hire them, they can go, well, you did that because you found out my wife was pregnant and you didn't want me taking paternal leave. That's illegal. It is. Or you find out that maybe they have, maybe they're part of the LGBTQ plus spectrum. Even if it has nothing to do with why you decide to not go with them, as soon as you ask that question, it is insanely easy for them to go, well, you were asking that question to find out if I was a part of this protected class so that you could choose not to hire me because of that. And there's no way you're going to be able to defend yourself. It's a stupid question to ask. Do not ask applicants about their family or home life. Avoid the topic like a plague. It's a dumb question. They had it on there. I brought it up to them. I brought it up to my training manager. I go, this is a really bad question. He goes, well, why? I said, it's opening us up to major liability. Like somebody tells me about the fact that they've got a kid coming, a kid on the way, and I decide not to hire them. Well, they just have decided that I didn't hire them but because of their possible kid coming and the fact that they might want to take parental leave for it. Oh, I never thought about that. I said, yeah, it's a real dumb question. Don't do it. Anyway, the other questions on there were things like, what do you enjoy doing in your off time? Another thing that can be real hardsy. But they were all questions about getting to know them as a person, as opposed to trying to trick them into revealing their true intentions. And it was one of the things that I hated about interviews in general is that they're incredibly adversational, or your adversaries. I can't. Seizures suck, folks. Um, they're incredibly like combative. It's like both of you are trying to outfox the other person, trying to trick them into giving you, and they don't need to be. In any way, shape, or form. When I finally was allowed to do interviews the way that I like to do them, I was significantly better at finding uh, potential good candidates because I could ask them the real the things and I could get them off of the defensive and I can go, hey, listen, I'm not here to screw you over and I'm going to assume you're not here to screw me over. Let's just talk. I have a job. I want to see if you're going to be a good fit for it. So let's figure this out. And stuff like that. The same thing is true about auditions in acting in general. Is this incredibly adversarial situation where you come in and you have to try to read their minds and figure out what it is that they really want for this part. And then the casting director and whoever else is there, they're doing everything they can to try and trick you into proving that you don't actually know what you're doing. And the last audition that I went on, I didn't get the part because I didn't do the cloak and dagger thing, but I remember it vividly. The theater group I had done a few shows with before had shot me a message and said, hey, Jody, we are currently casting for The Wizard of Oz. And we would really like you to audition for the part of the wizard if you have the time. And I loved this group. I thought they were a great group of people. I didn't know the director. They'd brought in an outside director, which is really, really common. Never heard of the director before, but I knew the theater and I'd worked with them a lot. And I had nothing but good experiences with them. So I shot them a message back and said, I'd love to. Because they knew that I was, at that point, I was getting close to being a working actor. I'd actually had a paying gig. I was auditioning a little bit more regularly. So I go in. And because I'm really comfortable, again, normally what happens in an audition is you have a monologue prepared or something. And if it's a musical, you'll have a song prepared. And you come in, you slate, I'm Trainer Jody, I'm auditioning for the role of blah, blah. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just get up there. And you do your piece. And then sometimes, not often, sometimes the casting director or someone that's helping make the decisions might have a question for you. You might do what's called a dry reading, where they basically give you a script and they have you read lines for the part that you're going to do. And again, you do your reading and they might give you some feedback going, hey, can you try doing it this way? They might not. You never know. But they won't really interact with you in any way, shape, or form. That's how it's supposed to work. Because again, everybody in the audition, like the actor is trying to fool the production company into thinking that they're actually a good actor. And for the actors, the production company is lying to them and is trying to trick them. And so it's always this very adversarial, combative thing. And so I remember I walked in. It's a very small theater. I think it sat maybe 100 people on a full night. So I come in. I say hi to the people there. I go and just sit down. I'm familiar with the show. I hadn't done it before, but I'd seen it a few times, and I know the movie really well. So I just sit down, and they go, okay, is my actual name here? Present. So I get up there and I'm reading for the part of the wizard. And the scene that I'm doing is there's a scene near the end of the show where Dorothy is talking with the wizard after he's been revealed. He shows, well, I can't really do any of that stuff. I'm just a normal person. This is all smoke and mirrors. And the line that I remember distinctly is Dorothy goes, oh, you're a very bad man. Because the wizard's been going, well, I've been trying to do this, I've been trying to do that, and it just hasn't been working. And she goes, oh, you're a very bad man. And he looks at her and goes, no, I'm a very good man. I'm just a very bad wizard. And so I get up there, and I know the scene. And so as I get up there, before I start interacting with the person that I'm reading with, I turn to the director. And I just go, did you have something in mind? Like, did you have a character voice or anything in mind for the wizard? And he looked at me like I'd slapped him across the face. He goes, I'm not sure. I said, well, is there any particular way you'd like me to approach it? Like just having a conversation that I would have with a director if I'd already gotten the part. He goes, why don't you just take your own, like, why don't you just make your decision? We'll see how I like that decision. I go, okay. And so I used kind of a character voice. I moved my voice up here, and so I remember, you're a very bad man. He goes, no, I'm a very good man. Just a very bad wizard. But I think that if I can do this, and I go on and I do this scene, it goes beautifully. It goes amazingly. I turn to the director. I go, is that good? Would you like a different take on it? Again, being extremely casual, being very collaborative, I guess would be the thing. Is there a different thing you'd like to see there? Would you like me to make a different choice there? What do you want? He goes, no, that'll do it. And I walk off. And I get to the back of the rehearsal hall where, like, the owners of the theater are, who are heavily involved. Like, one of them was basically the tech director, and the other one ran finances and stuff. And I'd act there normally in every single show as well. This is a really small community theater. So I'd acted with them before. They're really good friends of mine, or were. I haven't spoken to them in years. I feel bad because they're wonderful people. So I go back there, and he goes, oh, man. The tech director goes, oh, man, you got the part, man. That was amazing. I said, thanks. We'll see. Maybe that wasn't the vision that he had, but no, you. And he gets him real close. He's like, I've been watching auditions all day. We have not had good auditions, man. I'm like, well, we'll see. I'd love to be a part of the show. And I go off. Surprisingly enough, didn't get the part. And I remember hearing back from them because later on, the director, because I'd given them my email address or they knew my email address from working with them so many times. But they had, I put my email address on the audition form, and he'd used that email address to send out a mass email about some charity fundraising event that he was doing. It had nothing to do with the theater, nothing to do with acting or anything like that. And I didn't reply to him at all because I didn't know him. I'd never worked with him. And I wasn't particularly fond of him because he didn't cast me in his damn show. But I shoot a message back to the theater company and go, hey, why am I getting an email from this dude? Why are you guys giving my email out to people so I can get spam messages about charity events that I am not involved in any way? And I got immediate response back like, we're so sorry. We didn't know that he'd kept the email list or anything like that. We'll make sure it never happens again. We are so sorry. I go, hey, I'm not mad at you guys or anything. I am very much offended that this person was able to get my contact information, use it for something completely aside from the intended purpose. But I understand, it was a mistake and you guys didn't make the decision. They go, yeah, to be perfectly honest, we don't know why you didn't get the role. Like, he just was angry at you or something. And so, yeah, he really didn't like the fact that instead of going up there and doing the little, ooh, I'm going to trick you, ooh, you rascally rabbit, I just went up and went, hey, what do you want? Like, I can waste my time coming up with a billion different takes on this character. The character's been done to death. Every high school has done The Wizard of Oz at least once. It has been shown everywhere. Every single person has seen it. They have redone the damn thing 400 bajillion times. There are so many different people that have had their take on the Wizard. There is not a unique take on the character of the Wizard of Oz left. So there's no reason for me to sit here and try and find the one unique. What are you looking for? You already know what you want the wizard to be. Just tell me, and I will do it, because that's what actors do. Because after I get this part, you're going to tell me exactly what you want out of this. But I somehow have to prove that I am unique enough in order for you to give me the chance to be told what to do. And that's the same thing that happens in business as well. It's this idea of I have to somehow trick you into giving me the job, then make you shit tons of money. No, it doesn't. And it's just, it annoys me so much. And like I said, Mr. Boring is such a perfect example of that taken to an extreme, where even people, like, he is so convinced, as far as I can tell, my theory, he is so convinced that people are going to try and trick and cheat him that he will try and trick and cheat them first and just assume that they were already going to do that, and he beat them to the punch. And that's such a toxic, horrible way to run a company. To kind of bring this back to how this channel works. The reason that is a viewpoint in the business is because there are people who will lie, cheat, and steal and try to extort your company for money. It's a real thing. It's, you know, if you've ever heard the phrase, this is why we can't have nice things, there are enough people out there that are willing to do that this is why the hiring process is so adversarial. Because enough people fucked over enough companies that everybody just took notice and went, well, it's not worth us getting screwed over by one or two employees that we have to do that. But if you understand how to protect yourself and you're not stupid, you don't have to be that adversarial. Yes, there are going to be people that are going to try to cheat you out of as much money as they possibly can. If you're looking to hire an editor, if you're looking to hire writers, researchers, whatever you are, you're creating your YouTube channel or you're growing your YouTube channel and you need to start hiring employees, there are going to be people that will lie to your face to you, tell you that they can do things that they can't, and hope that they're never called out on it. Yes, that is a thing. It's not nearly as common as people will make it out to be, especially if you look at books and things like that teach you how to hire good employees. They will basically try to convince you that every single employee every single resume that you read is entirely fabricated. It's not real. Sitting down and having a real conversation with someone that's possibly going to be working for you is a really good thing. It takes a while to learn how to spot a good employee versus a not good employee. And you don't want to be quote unquote friends with your employees. What I mean by that is if you find someone that you interview them for, like, maybe they're an editor position. It's normally the first hire that most YouTubers make. You hire someone to be your editor, and you just have this instant bond with them where you're finishing each other's sentences, and the interview goes on for 3 hours because you guys are just talking about everything. They probably would make a fantastic friend. They're probably not going to make a fantastic employee, for the mere fact that you had a job to do and you got completely distracted because of your relationship with them, despite the fact that the relationship started just then. That's going to be a problem for you as an employer, because it's obvious that they can make you so comfortable that you stop doing your job. Does that mean you can't be friends with your employees? Absolutely not. However, as a business owner, you have a job. And when you don't do your job, like if a bag boy doesn't do their job, not a whole lot happens. They get fired. Maybe a couple customers get pissed off because their eggs were crushed. Company loses like $12 replacing people's eggs or bread. It's not that big a deal. When a business owner screws up, they can lose their business, which sucks. Every single person that relies on them is now also screwed. Everybody that worked for that company now no longer has a job. Anyone going from that company to another company is going to have that stain on their record because, again, everything on a resume is a complete fabrication. And when they see, oh, you worked for this company that was run so incredibly poorly that it was run into the ground, how do I know it wasn't your fault? Like, it's working for a company that went belly up while you were there is a really, really bad thing. And it takes a lot of interviewing experience to be able to maneuver yourself around the idea of, yeah, I was there and I was a really good employee there. Upper management were not great. Like, you have to be real careful, because if you just badmouth your last company, the interviewer is going to go, well, if this is what they're saying about the last person that interviewed them, why would I want them to say this about me when they inevitably leave this company? Average employee stays at the same job. I think it's for about like 3 to 4 years. So, like, more likely than not, they're going to be interviewing for another job in the future, and they're probably going to badmouth you if they're badmouthing their old job. So, yeah. Like I said, I'm recovering from a seizure, so not a whole lot of this makes sense. The thing I wanted to swing back to is business does not have to be adversarial. There are ways to conduct interviews without having to assume that the person is going to try to fuck you over. Most people in the workplace are not going to do that to you. And the few people that are, as long as you run an ethical business and you're not doing stupid shit, they're not going to be able to screw you over that much. Generally, what happens when companies get really screwed over is you have a manager that's maybe sexist or something, you get a discrimination lawsuit, and it costs the company hundreds of thousands of dollars because this particular person kind of clocked that, oh, that's the sexist one, got them into a situation where they knew that they would say something sexist, and then took them to the cleaners. It's a thing that does happen. It's really, really rare. And again, the easiest way to prevent it from happening is not focusing on the person that mischaracterized things and took the company to the cleaners. No, the easier way to fix that is don't hire sexist managers. Or when you do start getting reports of managers doing things that they shouldn't be, or anyone that they shouldn't be, you squash it immediately. Run an ethical company. You don't have to worry about stuff like that. Don't have people working off the clock. Don't do all these other kind of shady things that may or may not be legal, but as long as nobody finds out, no. Run the company the way it's supposed to be run. And then if you do get someone that's going to try and ring you for all the money that you're worth, they won't have anything to ring you for aside from maybe negotiating a salary larger than their worth. And that's a pretty simple thing to deal with. You get rid of them when they're not doing the job that they're supposed to. You document it and make sure that they can't, sue you for unlawful termination and things like that. Again, there are people out there that will fuck you over. They're really, really rare. Mostly because it takes a lot of work to do that, and most people aren't willing to put that much work in. But anyway, that's my video for today. Like I said, I needed to do something because that seizure sucked real bad. I have no idea if this made any sense, but it's all for me today. See you guys next time. Bye.